Hi everybody, good morning, good afternoon or good evening, depending on where in the world you're dialing in or listening to us from. Welcome to our 40th episode of Lead Strong. Amazing, they're up to number 40. This week on a really interesting topic of the role of humility and vulnerability in leadership. As always, my name is Celine Floyd. I'm one of the directors of Capfinity's talent practice with my wonderful co-host Stephanie Hopper. Capfinity, we are experts in the assessment and development of strengths. We partner with, I think it's 250 organisations out of 80 countries at the moment, working from apprentice level all the way up to board level, transforming organisations with offices out of the UK, Australia and America. My background is in occupational psychology with an expertise in assessment of talent and leadership. And Stephanie, lovely in green, lovely to see you as always. Over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, great to be here. As you said, can't believe we're on episode 40. I'm Steph Hopper, one of the other directors of the talent practice at Capfinity, and I'm really thrilled with our two guests today and looking forward to hearing some of their pearls of wisdom. No pressure, ladies, whatsoever. But what I thought would be nice is actually if you could introduce yourselves and to tell us a bit about yourself and your career and why you're passionate about leadership. And Emma, perhaps I could come to you first. Tell us more about you.
Hi, hello everyone. I'm Emma Dickson. I'm currently Head of Human Resources with the Oxford Collection, which is a beautiful group of hotel and restaurants in Oxford. I've always worked in hospitality since the age of 14. First job as a kitchen porter, worked my way up operationally, studied hospitality management at Oxford Brookes University, and then sort of worked my way up through operational management roles, really, and then took a sidestep into HR maybe 15 years ago now. Again, I've always worked in human resource management roles within hospitality, and then recently did my master's degree at Oxford Brookes. Made some wonderful contacts there, friends for life, and learnt a lot there. But I think looking at my last couple of roles that I've done in industry, I was with Raymond Blanc and Belmond at Le Mans Work Saison for about 8 years prior to moving into my role here. So worked in some very beautiful places, which I feel very, very privileged, very lucky to do that. But yeah, that's where I am now.
Amazing. Yeah, I bet you've got a bed you could jump on there, Emma.
I have, but I positioned it with a Christmas tree behind because I didn't want you to think I was slacking, but yeah.
I like it. But if you need to have a little nap halfway through, we understand if you disagree.
Yeah, we won't.
And Emma, just one final question, I guess, is why are you passionate about the subject of leadership?
I don't know if this is going to be the right answer, but I'll give it anyway because this is my genuine, I guess, answer, just me being real. I think always, even as a child, and even when I was at school, I kind of have taken a natural lead in a lot of things. So leadership is important to me, it's something that I've always sort of naturally found, something that I have fallen into. But for me, particularly my role in HR, I get such a buzz from seeing people grow into leadership roles and knowing that I or we can play a part in that in terms of succession planning and leadership development and coaching. When you see somebody, whether they start as an apprentice and they work their way up into being a senior leader, senior manager, the buzz that you get from that is like nothing else. And that's why I do what I do.
Amazing. That's so lovely. Thank you, Emma. And there's no wrong or right answers. So
no, definitely not.
We'll go with your guts. And the lovely Anne. Anne, tell us about you and why you're passionate about leadership.
You see, I think I should start with saying I was a 5-star yellow badge at McDonald's as well, because that's where I really started with my leadership. I mean, I'm very, very proud of that. But at the moment, I am head of corporate planning and programs, so a long way from being a 5-star yellow badge at McDonald's, but head of corporate planning and programs at the National Institute for Health Research Clinical Research Network Coordinating Centre. It's a bit of a mouthful. And I've been here for the past 14 years. And basically it's about putting infrastructure into the NHS to make sure that research can happen for the health and wealth of the nation. And it's, I absolutely love this job. Before that, I was 11 years in marketing, actually, for fast-moving consumer goods. And so I'm a long way from when I used to tell Nicky Clark and Charles Worthington what shampoo they should put in their bottles. So total change of direction. But both sides have been absolutely brilliant. I think I've been very lucky to have done both things and sort of do the public and the private sector. And basically have grown in the role that I'm in now, having taken a bit of a sidestep from sort of 14 years ago to think of doing something completely different. But absolutely love the job that I have now. Could probably see myself retiring in this job. That's a scary thought, isn't it? But yeah, so I've been here for just about 14 years now. Amazing. Inspiring leadership. Who doesn't love to be inspired with leadership? I think I've been incredibly lucky. Probably seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, but I have to say much more of the good. And same as what Emma says, I think you can be nurtured with people that are good leaders, that show fantastic leadership skills, and we're going to talk about it today with humility. That's certainly my style, or I like to think it's my style, and I've been really lucky to see people like that throughout my career that have sort of embodied that side of leadership.
Amazing. Oh, amazing. Thank you both so much for joining us. Can't wait to get into thick and hear your different insights based on your sectors and your experience. And Anne, there's a lovely segue into the topic, which, as you said, is humility and vulnerability in leadership. And it's interesting, if you look at everything going on in the world, I think it would be easy and understandable to assume that what's needed in organisations and on the global stage is a very assertive, very forthright, very bold style of leadership. But interestingly, what all the research is showing is that actually the opposite is true. And really interesting, I read a HBR article which featured Professor Amy Edmondson, who's done quite a lot of research in this space. And she was explaining how leaders need vulnerability, not bravado. And there's an excerpt which I think is really nice. I'm just going to read it as is. So she says, in a complex and uncertain world that demands constant learning and agility, the most apt and adaptable leaders are those who are aware of their limitations, have the necessary humility to grow their own and others' potential, and are courageous and curious enough to create sincere and open connections with others. And in the work that Steph and I and our brilliant team do, in our leadership workshops, we often ask delegates the question, what are the 3 hardest words for a leader to say? And the answer is, I don't know. It's a tough one for leaders, but it can have really profound, repercussions. And Adam Grant, an organisational psychologist, talks a lot around humble leadership, which is, that's described as an accurate view of oneself. So this notion of understanding your limitations. And again, back to another quote from Edmondson before coming to the first question. She says again, be sure to ask for help when you need it. A leader's job isn't to be a hero. It's to bring a group of people together to collectively solve problems. Be willing to try strategies that you didn't think of or that are new to you. Flexibility and openness is a sign of confidence, not weakness. And then Adam Grant says, it takes curiosity to learn. It takes courage to unlearn. So some really lovely content in there, which we thought we'd share just to paint the picture of the conversation. Perhaps coming to Anne first, then, in the first instance, in your experience of leading and working with other leaders, what have you seen to be the benefits of a leader taking a more humble approach and showing their vulnerability? And where have you seen this be done effectively, Anne?
I think probably one of the best examples is we've had a chief executive that's worked at the National Institute of Health Research for 10 years. He's retired now, Dr. Jonathan Sheffield, and he always used to instill in everybody in the organisation that he doesn't know all of the answers to everything.
Mhm.
And therefore, I can't know all of the answers to everything. You've got to go and do that for me. And the empowerment that it puts into staff is incredible. People then think, well, okay, well, I can say, I think I know a better way of doing this. And he would just embrace that. And he was great at doing the, you would do the work. He would never take the credit for things. It was always about other people taking the credit. And on the flip side, if you didn't quite get it right and something went a bit wrong, he'd always say, just blame me. Just blame me. Don't worry about it. I'll take any rap for it. But that provided an air of confidence in the people then that worked with him and for him, which is very different to how a lot of leaders lead. Most people. I came from FMCG. It was battle-hardened individuals. You could never say that you didn't know an answer or that you didn't know, the sort of direction to go. And that's quite a different way of leading. And so it was more by a bit of fear. And there's a balance between vulnerability and weakness, because it's a real fine line between the two that actually people sometimes can think, oh, well, they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know the answer to this. They should know the answer to this because they get paid twice as much as I do. But actually just not the case. But I think it really empowers a workforce and creates a real confidence in a workforce that they can do the work without being slapped down for doing something wrong. And it's just been great. Really, really great.
Sounds amazing. Yeah, sounds amazing. And you're right, vulnerability and weakness are not synonymous with each other. And when you were talking there, and you're making me think, when I think about humble leadership, I think about the impact on people and the realization that person is human and the kind of authenticity piece. But when you were talking there, I was realizing that actually when you have someone saying, I don't have all the answers, as you said, it empowers people around to see their role and to see where their contribution can be. And that's a lot of people thrive off of that, don't they? Knowing what my role is and how I can help and how I can add value. And actually that's what he was doing in that situation.
Absolutely. And it energizes the workforce,
Yeah, lovely. Okay, thank you. And Emma, does that resonate with some of the things that you've seen and some of the examples of where a more humble approach to being a leader has really worked?
Absolutely. I think as well, I can really relate to that myself, mainly because there's quite a lot. I say quite a lot. There's a few things within our HR department that I rely on and trust my team to do that I can't do. So my HR manager oversees payroll and runs all of our payroll and does that in-house. And there's absolutely no way on this planet that if she had to take a couple of weeks off when the payroll deadline was, that I would be able to take over and do that. I don't have that area of skills and expertise that she does. I was actually talking to our director, Rebecca, who's been with the company for a really long time and has again worked her way up and knows the ins and outs of everything. And I sort of said to her a little while ago, gosh, we would really be stuck without Valentina, because this is her area of expertise, and she makes sure that 243 people are paid every 4 weeks on time. But I'm her manager and I can't do that. And she said, gosh, do you think I can go in and run a 700-800 cover service and run the pass and cook for that number of people? I'm the director of this company and I can't do it. And I think sometimes it's not always about being able to have have the skills to do everything, but it's about being able just to lead people and nurture people, and delegate, not being afraid to delegate, not necessarily what you can't do and passing everything off. Having the trust. And I think trust is a key word here as well. I think when you have that level of openness with your team, and you know that your leader is humble and able to show that level of vulnerability, it builds trust and sort of that knowledge of not being expected to be superhuman, because we're not. We're human beings, not human doings, right? Yeah. I always, there's one manager that or leader that always stands out to me is a guy called Philip Newman Hall, and he was the director general manager of Le Manoir. And he would always, if you asked him a question and he didn't know, he would always say, I mean, a bit like what Anna said, he would always say, I don't know, but I will find out. So you always had that confidence that, okay, he doesn't know, but he will, and I will find out what the answer is.
Really interesting. You know what I was thinking about as I was listening to both of you is how, and maybe Anne, this goes back to your McDonald's experience, but I think the first time in our careers we're promoted to be managers, like that very first time you're leading any sort of team or you've got 1 or 2 direct reports, you've usually achieved that because of your knowledge and your sort of performance within role. And it's a, you know, it's a promotion that most people at that stage in their career are looking for. But it sort of works against us later in our career when you're leading much bigger organisations or teams where it's not about knowledge, it's about a whole range of skills and behaviours. And you have lots of people who are doing lots of different things who've got the knowledge. And actually you're there as a figurehead, as a role model, as someone who can facilitate things. But it sort of gets in the way, doesn't it? That original promotion of realising it's okay not to have the answers. And, you know, got permission for that, really.
Yeah, it's about confidence in your own ability, though, isn't it, as well?
Yeah.
I do think this, you know, there's 4 females on here, and actually most of us probably had moments where we're going, oh, I don't know, I'm not quite sure I should be doing this. But actually, if you are confident in your own ability and you're also confident to be able to say to people, do you know, I really don't know the answer to that, or that's your level of expertise. I'm here if you need help, and if you need some guidance or, you know, whatever, come and give me a shout. But actually, I know that I couldn't do the business analyst job, that I managed the team of business analysts. They wouldn't want me to do the business analyst job, I'll tell you now. But I don't need to be the expert in it, but I do need to make sure that they're all okay, that they've got the leadership that they need to be able to do their job well. And off they go, you know, you go, you know, head off in the right direction. But they always know that A, I've got their backs, and B, I'm there to help if they need some help. But I'm fairly confident in saying I have no idea what you're talking about, so you're going to have to explain this to me in a bit more detail. And they do it all the time. They're very good at it. They are. But yeah, confidence, I think, is one. Confidence and trust, as Emma said before, trust. I do think that those are 2 massive
Really
considerations. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's just think about a different angle here. So a recent survey that was conducted by Strategy and, who are PwC's global strategy consulting business, they highlighted the importance of balancing certain characteristics that on the surface look paradoxical. So we used to accept, for instance, that leaders could either be great visionaries or operationally brilliant. So they couldn't be both. They had to be one or the other. And that's now not the case. But when you start to read some of what's being expected of leaders, I think it feels tough. I mean, some of the descriptions that I found were tech-savvy humanists, high-integrity politicians, humble heroes, globally minded localists, traditional innovators. I mean, it's a lot, isn't it, that we're expecting of leaders today. And, you know, people in that survey that PwC did, they agreed on the importance of all of those different types of roles, but they also voiced concern about leaders' lack of proficiency in a lot of them, being able to balance those things. So I guess that's my question. It's around the balance. Maybe I'll come to Anne. How should leaders go about balancing humility and vulnerability, and also providing a clear vision and sort of determined inspiration, Anne?
It's quite a tough one, this one. I have to say, I mean, I do think that with the leaders that I've worked with in the past, they've always had that vision. So they have had the vision. They've had, you know, very, very high intelligence, great skill levels. So you're confident in the fact that they've got that, which then almost allows the humility and the vulnerability to be able to come through when it needs to. So I think that's where it's difficult, where sometimes you have leaders that don't necessarily provide that inspiration or that real sort of goal setting, and don't worry, we know where we're heading in this direction. And if you don't get that, I think that's when it can start to break down a bit. And you maybe don't necessarily then always see the sort of the vulnerability bit. You might see it as, do they know what they're doing? So it's a real fine line, I think, real fine line. And to be able to do all of that, Stephanie, that you've just said, well, I'm doomed, I can tell you now. But, you know, really difficult.
It's hard.
Thing.
And the kind of I don't know thing is really difficult, isn't it? There's a lovely authenticity to I don't know. But actually, if you rock up to every team call and all you ever say is I don't know and I haven't got the answer, there is a lack of confidence quite quickly in you as a leader. So it's really tough. Emma, what are your thoughts about that kind of providing the North Star, but also being kind of real and humble and authentic?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to balance. And, you know, you've given a great example there. If you're constantly saying, oh, I don't know, and being a bit too blasé about it, then people won't have that trust and faith in you. Ultimately, you do go to your manager or your leader and expect that they might know at least 3/4 of the answer. So I think it is about a balance, but also collectively as a team, because a leader is leading a team, you've got to have that collective vision. And I think a mutual understanding really of where you're heading and how you're going to get there. But also, and I don't know if I'm going to go down a rabbit hole here, but also I'm quite famous for that.
We love rabbit holes on here. It's fine. Don't worry.
I think if as a team we all go through that whole storming, forming, norming, performing, depending on where you are at that stage in the process and how long you've all worked together and how many newbies you've got come in and all your different areas of expertise. I think that also impacts one's leadership style in terms of how you manage different people and how you get the best out of people. So how you might lead a team today would be different to where you might be 6 months down the line. And I think it is all about balance, but also as a team, knowing that you look at your mistakes or where you went wrong. But the most important thing is how you move on from that and how do we get better? What would we do differently? It's not about a blame culture, but collectively as a leader, I think leading your team to understand how you would be better. Ultimately, that's the vision, isn't it? You want success, you want to achieve what you set out to do. Don't know if that answers the question.
No, I think that's really true. The other thing I was thinking about, Emma, was that you also, as a leader, it's gone out of my mind. Over to you, Celine.
I actually didn't go down my rabbit hole. I was going to start talking about Belbin team types and understanding the different. I mean, we'd need a whole other session for that. But
what you said chimed with me, and I've forgotten what the link is. I'll remember in a minute.
What I was thinking about was when you were both giving your answers, there was like a synergy for me for parenthood for those that have got children, like, you know, like the sign of, you know, successful parenthood arguably is that, you know, the child eventually kind of doesn't need you, which is paradoxical in itself. And I think there's a synergy there with like leadership in that. And then we had another guest on a few weeks ago who was talking about leadership, and he said the litmus test of a leader is where if the leader isn't in the room, everyone can still speak to that leader's kind of vision and what that leader would want. And so, yeah, there's something really about empowerment, I think, at the heart of what we're talking about, isn't there? And really empowering others and enabling others and lifting others up so that the team and the organisation is greater than that one individual person. And my reflection is maybe that's what's at the heart of humility. You're both nodding, so I think,
somebody once said to me, what you want to be doing, Anne, is always trying to sort of work your way out of a job.
That's it.
So actually, you know, you're really not needed, and it's not meant in a negative way at all. It's meant in a really positive way.
It's a compliment.
You can step away, and actually everything carries on. Everything doesn't we might miss you for a couple of weeks, you know, and say, oh, Nan's not making the tea anymore. But you know, actually, they could just get on with doing the job, and it wouldn't be some massive hole that's left behind. So you're always trying to do yourself out of job. Always try and do yourself out of a job, Anne. That's what somebody said. I've been trying for years and I still can't get to do myself out of a job. I've been trying.
Or even before that, being able to go on holiday. I tell you what, the last holiday I had, my phone didn't ring once, and it was a good thing. But they didn't want me.
it on? Is it working?
It's on. And I was like, it's either
I don't
really
take
means
mine,
that
Emma.
something big's gone down and they just can't tell me about it. I got back and everyone was like, I just didn't need you. It was all fine.
No,
Which is great.
I think it's interesting. Yeah, it's really interesting signals, I think, of successful leadership. And there's also, for me, a link to kind of corporate citizenship, you know, that you're putting the organisation before yourself or before your own kind of progression and career, which I think, and I've always been struck by, I mean, like people that do interim roles and how kind of powerful they can be, and I've always wondered on, you know, why they exist, like, and why we're not all working as if we were. It's just, from people, when people do that well, they go in, don't they? They fix things, and they know they're leaving. So it's all about what can I do to enable people to, you know, carry on with this after I leave, which I feel like should be a tenet of leadership just generally. But anyway, it's for another discussion. Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you both so much. And Steph, for your contributions to the sessions, some really interesting insights. Just to summarise some of the key things that I'm taking away, we started talking about examples of where we have seen a more humble style of leadership be really effective, and we talked about how it can engender confidence in people. It can help people understand their role in the organisation and the contribution that they can make. Really, almost paradoxically, it's a vehicle for building trust with people. And I loved it when you were talking about, you know, how vulnerability and weakness are not synonymous. They don't mean the same thing. But then Emma, you were talking really nicely around how, you know, there is a balance to be struck though between that. And Emma, you were also saying, which I loved, around, you know, actually it's about reading the room, it's about reading the team, and being able to adapt that your style of leadership according to what the people around you need, and maybe showing that vulnerability more in some instances and less in others. And just to finish, just most recently we talked about as I say, how to still be visionary and to build confidence in people, but whilst being humble. And you were talking about the importance of you know, having that clear direction and setting that clear goal, and that being a really useful anchor for people. And then together we were talking about how really the goal of a leader is to empower everyone around you, so that you're not needed anymore, which is slightly sad but very powerful as an analogy for what we're all going for here. So yes, some really interesting content. And what I'll do is come to each of you in turn now for your final pearls of wisdom. So Emma, over to you first.
Could you please go to Anne first?
We'll do Anne. Anne, you can mull it over, Emma. Anne, what are your final reflections on today's conversation?
I love giving pearls of wisdom. I really do. It's just fascinating. So I think for me, you know, the ability to show leadership while allowing others to have, you know, ideas, experiment, sometimes get things wrong, but it grows a really confident and empowered workforce and team. And you know, for me, that's the most important thing. Just know when to step back and let others, you know, keep going, because actually usually people will surprise you, and you know, they're fantastic. People are fantastic, come up with some great things, and just let them do it.
Yeah, love that. People are surprising. That's lovely, Anne. Thank you. And Emma.
Yeah, I think really it's about as you said earlier, we're recapping on what I'd already said. It's about reading the room. It's about being adaptable, and adapting your leadership style and building that trust. Accepting as a leader yourself that you won't have all the answers, but you can trust other people that do have the expertise to crack on and do it when you can't. I think, you know, having that level of emotional intelligence and self-awareness of what you can and can't do, knowing your limitations, and actually being open and honest enough to talk about those in front of those that you're leading is a really important thing. And just always striking that balance.
Lovely. Yeah, the power of I don't know. Thank you, Emma. And Steph.
Yeah, and I think there's still a lot of fear around saying I don't know and showing that vulnerability. The benefit to me, though, is that's what allows people to connect when they see you're not perfect, when they see that you have challenges and things that you find hard. That's what makes you feel real, and that they can connect with you on a human level. And I think we shouldn't ever forget that, because that's, you know, the sort of the branded leader is not the one that people connect with. It's the person underneath, and we're all human beings at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Mwah, perfect finale. Thank you, Steph. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, as I say, for a brilliant conversation. Thank you for everyone who has listened and everyone who is listening to this offline later. Pleasure to be together and to talk about this wonderful topic, and look forward to seeing you all in your next episode. Thank you, Emma. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Steph.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.